Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 20th episode of Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. We're glad to have you here once again this morning. Yeah, it's actually morning time. Excuse me if I said evening. It's become a bit repetitious at this point in time, but yeah, it is morning. Here at the Text Messages Studios located in Elk River, about 30 minutes northwest of the Minneapolis-St. Paul metro area, and about probably 45 minutes southeast of the St. Cloud, Waite Park, Sartell, Sauk Rapids metro area, or the real Twin Cities, as we call them here. A lot of people may think that Twin Cities are actually Minneapolis and St. Paul, but based on the hit movie from 1989, Catch Me If You Can, the Twin Cities are actually St. Cloud, Sartell, Sauk Rapids, and maybe Foley. Those are the real Twin Cities, even though there's 4 of them, so technically I guess they'd be quad cities, but yeah, so maybe the Twin Cities are actually St. Cloud, Sauk Rapids. That's probably the real Twin Cities right there. And depending on who you talk to or what history you read, some people claim that Sauk Rapids was actually going to be the capital of Minnesota, but what happened is they had a hurricane or a tornado, a cyclone come through. It's probably in the, I don't remember exactly, late 1800s, early 1900s, somewhere in that ballpark. But it's going to be it's almost, see, the thing with Minneapolis, St. Paul, they're pretty close to the Wisconsin border, so they're not really centrally located in Minnesota. I mean, if you want to, Bemidji to St. Paul is probably 4 or 5 hours away, which is pretty far. But even Bemidji to Sauk Rapids is still a good 3 to 4 hours. So I mean, it's a bit of a haul, that's for sure. I mean, if you're hauling a fish trailer or a race car to go from Bemidji to Sauk Rapids, it's going to cost you a lot of money in fuel, and you got a higher probability of getting pulled over and getting beaten up by the cops or getting run off the road or hit more potholes or hit bad weather or anything like that. So there's you're always going to have those added issues when traveling longer distances. And Minnesota's a pretty big city, pretty big state. If you go from Worthington to International Falls, I mean that's probably about an 8-hour drive. From north to south, south to north. I suppose if you go from one corner to the other. So what do we got up there? 2 harbors all the way down to Pipestone, maybe. Yeah, that'd be a bit of a haul too. So it covers a lot of landmass, very big state, but here at Text Messages, we're just going to try to make it great again. I mean, even if that means hitting the road and reliving some of the good old days or whatever the case may be. But yeah, I mean, we got a decent sized budget here, but we don't really like to spend money, so we probably won't delve into a lot of activities that require a lot of expenditure. I mean, the insanely expensive camera, yeah, that's pretty important to have. But as far as, are we going to spend hundreds of dollars to get up in a hot air balloon and film some show? No, definitely not. And the thing with hot air balloons too, I mean, I have this from good sources that if you are interested in hot air balloon rides, you got to be very careful, because if you buy, say you buy a ticket for 2 for a hot air balloon, what'll happen is you'll pay the money up front and you're on a waiting list, more or less. And the thing is, a lot of times they'll make excuses for not, firing up the hot air balloon and rising up in the sky because weather or maybe some rain is going to come through or it's too windy, or they'll come up with a wide array of excuses. So, you're on the waiting list, you keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and your ticket is apparently non-transferable or non-refundable. And after a certain point, you can't really resell it either, because then it expires. So ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in hot air balloons, make sure you vet the company carefully, you vet what they're up to, you try to at least get some semblance of feedback, so you got a pretty good handle on if you're going to get worked over or if they're on the up and up. Yeah, I mean, it sounds exciting, you get to ride around in a balloon and all that. I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? It's someday, maybe I'll give it a shot. But in the meantime, we'll just stay grounded for now. Work with gravity rather than against gravity, etc., etc. So here's the deal with today's episode. Normally we take Sundays off, watch NASCAR and maybe go outside or something, but the problem we're faced today, this weekend actually, is it's still snowing. The temperatures outside are probably about in the mid-20s, which for April, it's getting close to record lows. The overnight low is fairly close to a record. I mean, it's if it's in single digits or lower teens or whatever the case may be, but it's getting down there. So it's just not a very good weekend to engage in any typical springtime activities. And technically spring was a little 3.5 weeks ago. And these are absolutely not spring conditions. 10 inches of snow the last couple days, and to the point of the year now where you almost got your snow blower stored away for the for the summer and fall and everything. So yeah, just put the pig up in 4-wheel drive, pull out of the driveway, and do whatever. And it is important to, when it snows and you got bad weather conditions, it is important to get outside. Even when there's no sunlight, there's still very healthy components of being outside. You're going to get all the oxygen, there is some sunlight out there too. Just because the sun isn't shining directly, just because there's clouds out there and the sun is not shining through the clouds doesn't mean that there's no inherent benefit to whatever the sun may provide. So it's important to get outside, dress up, insulated coveralls, a jacket, a ski mask, all that good fun stuff. And just spend a few hours out there. If you sit inside all day watching TV, sitting behind screens, or sitting in front of an insanely expensive camera, you're going to, eventually by the end of the day, you're going to feel run down, depressed, angry, agitated, and you might take it out on family members, on pets, on physical objects, inanimate objects. You might take it out on yourself too. So ladies and gentlemen, it is important to just get outside a little bit. Yeah, you got to put on more clothes and boots and gloves and hats and mittens and face protectors and all that, but it's worth it. And plus, one of the things that I like most about when it snows out a lot and you walk around is you don't have to deal with any other people, or cars mainly. So that's definitely one of the benefits too. And most dogs are inside too, so they're not going to be barking at you. So basically there is a silver lining to most anything. So if you walk around when it's snowing out, you're not going to have to worry about getting stabbed or people barking at you or anything like that. So there is that to consider too. That's when the weather gets really nice, 50, 60 degrees out, always a little leery about walking around because you might have some teenage kids that are looking to strong hand you or something. So when it's really cold out, 20 below out, you don't have to worry about that stuff. So that's definitely one thing to consider too. It's nice weather always has collateral damage to it. If you move to a part of the country where it has nice weather, it's going to be more highly congested, probably more expensive. Maybe the air quality isn't very good. The soil might not be very good. That's another thing too. With these blizzards and all the snow on the ground, there's going to be a ton of moisture in the ground come spring and even summertime. So the plants should, assuming everything else is up to spec, the plants should be well prepared and they should flourish with this type of stuff. Assuming that there's not a mega drought or anything too. Assuming that it just consistently rains through spring, summer, and late summer it usually slows down a lot, but early summer, spring, and all that, we're fast approaching early summer too. So, what is it? 8 weeks till summer officially begins, so there's that to consider. And based on the way things are going lately, it might be winter till it's summertime. So, but things can always change in a hurry. Tomorrow it might warm up to 50 degrees. To play devil's advocate, December, I don't have the weather report in front of me here, but December did seem to have, there might have even been a day that got up to 60 in December. I can remember walking around outside, the hens were walking around and all that goofy stuff too, and everyone was just having a blast. So we definitely did get some pretty warm weather in December. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, it seems almost that the weather is shifting. Maybe it's just maybe we're approaching a new ice age, or the sun is hitting a cold spot, or whatever the case may be. That's not to undermine man-made global warming. I mean, maybe without man-made global warming, it'd be 10 degrees colder than it is now. So there's that to consider too, ladies and gentlemen. So I mean, I'm not a scientist or anything of that nature, but I can just read weather reports. That's about the extent of that, and have a decent memory as far as what the weather's been like in the past too. So, ladies and gentlemen, what we got here is the smart up segment. So there's been a study on people with different sleeping patterns. You got people who consider themselves a morning person, very morning person, evening or late evening. What that means is somebody who stays up till midnight, they'd be an evening person. Somebody who stays up till 2, 3 a.m. would be a late evening person. And yeah, there are people that work graveyard shifts and overnight and all that. We're not really going to consider them. I mean, that doesn't mean they're lesser people. I mean, a lot of people that work overnights are really great, morally upstanding, hardworking people. People in factories, nurses especially, doctors, EMTs, emergency medical transporters, those people that drive the helicopters, medevac helicopters, the people in military or other things of that nature. There's a lot of good people that work overnights, and it's very difficult to consent to that lifestyle and to live it too. So, I mean, there's certainly great people, but for this study, it's mainly focused on maybe people that work your typical 9 to 5 job and all that too. So what we have is Northwestern University and University of Surrey in United Kingdom had a 6-year study. They did questionnaires, and then they tested people's blood pressure and tested them for any ailments such as diabetes, psychological and neurological disorders. And what they found is that those identified as evening types had 10% higher mortality rate during the 6-year study, along with higher rates of diabetes, psychology and neurological disorders. The possible reasons include improper eating, exercise, stress, alcohol, or drug use. So this goes back to one of those cause and correlation deals. I mean, do people who stay up late at night, are they more susceptible towards alcohol and drug use? Doesn't really specify, but that could very well be the case. So I mean, that's not to say that all people that stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning are, drinking a liter of Jack Daniels every single night, but it's just maybe they're a little bit more susceptible, or maybe they're pounding down some wine coolers, or whatever the case may be. Humans are mostly designed to work in a circadian rhythm. Sun up, you're up, sun down, you're down. Now, yeah, every day of the year the sun shines at approximately a different quantity of time during the day. So, I mean, most sleep studies say that 8 hours is typical for most people. Now, if you're doing heavy strength training or if you're doing marathon training, you're probably going to need more. If you're living a very sedative lifestyle and not really using your brain very often, you can probably get by with less. And there are genetic differences too. I mean, some people claim that they only get 4 or 5 hours of sleep or whatever the case may be. And a lot of that could be deception and coercion too. I mean, if you're running a company, you want to create the illusion that you're just the most extremely hardworking person there and that you only sleep 2 hours a night so that everybody else thinks that they have to work hard too. That's important. If you're a leader, it's important to create those illusions and deceptions to motivate people under you to work harder. But it's also important to be honest with people. Probably a lot more important. So anytime you read anything about anyone that makes certain claims, consider those aspects, ladies and gentlemen. Now, that's not to say that every CEO is a liar or a cheater or a deceptor, because there may be some people that only sleep 4 hours a night. Maybe Vince McMahon that runs the WWE, yeah, maybe he only sleeps 4 hours a night. I mean, how's anybody going to know? So just try not to believe every single item you ever read. I know it's easier and efficient to believe everything you read and memorize it and then fill it out on a test and get a good high IQ rating, I mean, who doesn't want a high IQ rating, for example? I mean, then you can avoid when the eugenics knocks on your door, you can avoid them and tell them to get lost. You know, you got a 150 IQ, so you don't have to worry about that. But getting back to sleep, you know, just try to work with the sun, with the environment. The daylight savings, there have been studies on that too, that maybe it causes more heart attacks, and yeah, it probably does, but who knows? Yeah, maybe it saves on energy too, so there's also that to consider. But for the most part, I mean, if you got a job where you got to be there at 6 in the morning and you need to leave your house at 4:30 in the morning to avoid traffic, then that's what you got to do. Or if you got a job where you got to be there at 9 in the morning, and so then you can sleep till 8:30 and wake up and go to work right away, that works too. I mean, it's just sort of just trying to find everything in balance. I mean, if you got a job where you got to wake up at 4 in the morning, but you want to watch Hercules, and Hercules isn't on till 11 o'clock, then maybe you can either get a nap in the afternoon, 5 to 7 or something, or you can, because planning to sleep for only 4 hours a night is it's not really pragmatic for the lay person, for the average person. But yeah, you just got to do what you got to do. I mean, should you find a different job based on that? Maybe, maybe not. The most important thing is just to find a job that's close to home so that you can cut down on time wasted driving to and fro work. Because I've had jobs before where I had to drive from here to St. Paul, and it took, on a very good day, it took an hour in one direction. But like, for example, today, if there's a blizzard outside, it's going to take 2 hours in one direction. So I mean, it was a pretty horrible commute, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. It's just important to living close to work is one thing, but yeah, once you factor in family, friends, and school districts and all that good fun stuff too, then it becomes a whole different ballgame. Fortunately, around here, we got Rogers, St. Michael, Albertville, Elk River, so they're probably pretty good school districts. I mean, yeah, I'm sure they got government indoctrination injected into their curriculums too, but I mean, that's probably similar for all state schools. And maybe it would be better off just homeschooling kids. And I mean, with the internet nowadays, pretty much, there's a lot of bamboozling going on with internet information. But for the most part, you can find just about everything you're looking for. I mean, that's not to say there isn't also chicanery involved with textbooks too. I mean, just because they go through some long peer-reviewed process doesn't mean that there's not faulty information in them. In fact, that might be the most pernicious effect of corrupting your mind too. If there's an elaborate scheme to put out false information and it's using textbook companies to do that, that could be very, very dangerous to any society. So always consider that as well, ladies and gentlemen. So that being said, it looks like we're coming up to a break here. We're going to have good times, balls deep in the future. I was going to meet with the host on Friday, but had some difficulties with vehicles, and the weather probably really wasn't an issue. It's just with the vehicle. And so once we get that all figured out, then good times, balls deep will be back, and whenever we're going to air it, probably in the very near future. So I mean, he's doing a lot of research and studying a bunch of stuff too, so he's definitely putting in the time and effort and energy and the excitement as well. So, I'm super pumped about the show, and we might introduce some other shows in the near future too. We're always considering, I mean this show is, we have to start considering dynamic topics for this show too. That's why I wanted to run this Sunday broadcast, so that I could to come into it without a central theme, and to just read some modern day research articles or news articles and then run with it from there just to see what happens. Because if we do go to 5, 6, 7, 8 days a week, then we're going to have to change things up. I mean, there's no way you can talk about gardening or backyard chickens for 8 days a week. So then it is important to have slightly dynamic topics. I mean, it might get into more detail too, because for the most part we've just been sticking with pro-human, pro-common sense, pro-family. I mean, it's like, do you really need to know how intricate a study is about sleep? It's maybe, if we have a lot more time to fill than we have content, then yeah, we will start filling in details. But until then, we're just going to stick with common sense, common principles, common philosophy, and just try to help you, the ladies and gentlemen at home that are very busy with your life and your family and your work and making America great again and yourself great again and your children great again. So that being said, you're listening to Text Message on the Parasite of the show, Rick Text. We're glad to have you here on this Sunday special episode 20, special broadcast. So yeah, we're no longer teenagers anymore here. That being said, we're going to be back in 3 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Text Messages, ladies and gentlemen, on the Parasite of the show, Rick Text. We're glad to have you here on this Sunday morning, April 15th, 2018. Now, we have a bit of a special broadcast today. Normally we don't run on Sundays. It's Saturday, and we take Sundays off and then run again on Tuesday. I figured it'd be a good idea just to run a broadcast for today's talk show. And we got some pretty bad blizzard conditions outside too. For April 15th, that's very uncommon. I mean, it's, you live and learn. It's nothing to really cry about. Yeah, it does. It is a bit of an impediment towards your normal activities. But one of the things we're going to have to be careful of is normally when we plant, when we transfer indoor plants to outside, it's probably done usually around the mid-May, end of May, maybe even early May. But if we're going to get some erratic weather conditions, we might have to look at the forecast more carefully, because the last thing you want to do is bring some leafy, leafy green plants out, younger plants, small plants, and then a week later, if it freezes, all the leaves are going to die and shrivel up and all that. So you absolutely do not want that to happen. So then you have to go, backup plan though, you could buy starter plants. But however, here's the deal. If you buy seedlings, you can get a whole packet that's got a bunch of seeds in it, maybe 100 seeds or so. You can buy a whole packet for $3. If you want to get on the cheap end, 50 cents. And just put them in those big containers that we showed on starting seeds, and you can have 100, 200 starter plants all ready to rock when it comes time for late spring, early summer. Or, this is a lot more expensive, but if you were to go to Fleet Farm or that guy in Malacca, his greenhouse, if you were to go there, it would probably, if you bought 200 starter plants, it might cost $300 to $500 for all that stuff. So I mean, if you equate $3 to $300, it's a bit of a difference there. So from an economic standpoint, yeah, it makes sense to plant your own junk. And then too, if you can try to save seeds, a lot of people will take the biggest, baddest, best looking plant and then try to save the seed from that, or save seeds from multiple seeds from that and then reuse them next year. You can absolutely do that too. Seed packets are so reasonably priced though and affordable that I'm not really sure if that's, yeah, it's definitely a prudent thing to do. I mean, you want to always try to be self-sufficient where you can. Even if it's inconvenient, it's just a good idea to try to be self-sufficient, because you never know when that skill will come into play. And then you just feel better about yourself too. I mean, it's like, yeah, you can go to Big Joe Rosso's discount foods and buy heads of broccoli, but I mean, they might have weird chemicals on them, or a lot of people handle them, or they might have went through a very elaborate process of, garden to truck to refrigerator to store shelf. So more hands that touch an item, the more possible contaminants could be found on it. So, and what I've noticed too, I've been buying this broccoli frozen broccoli from the store, and the stems got these weird, there's these weird tough components to them that get stuck in your teeth, and you can't really even chew them. I mean, you have to, you start to chew a stem, and then it's got those weird tough, they're like dental floss almost. So you can basically only eat about 70% of the bag of broccoli. Yeah, it's very irritating. That's why it's nice just to grow your own stuff. Yeah, you can eat it fresh for the summer and fall, but then winter and spring, you basically eat the frozen stuff you had. And even to an extent, the first half of summer, while your plants are growing, you still eat the stuff from last year. So there's always that. And then you can get all kinds of your own plants, cauliflower, tomatoes, eggplant, acorn, squash. So yeah, the possibilities are endless. I mean, just all you gotta do is grab a shovel, go out there, dig up some yard, dump some plant food on it, or dump some horse manure on it, and there you go. That's really all there is to it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have some more studies here. So this study is about a certain hormone, FGF21. It's the name of a hormone. See, how hormones work in the body is you've probably heard of testosterone. I mean, so part of your body secretes that, and then it goes to all your receptors, your parts of your brain, your muscles, so says to grow muscles, basically. So here we have an FGF21 hormone secreted by liver that goes to your hypothalamus, which regulates how much food you're going to eat, or whether you're thirsty or not. Things like that. So we have a study from the University of Exeter, United Kingdom, and University of Copenhagen, Denmark. They collaborated. They had 451,000 individuals questioned and examined. The FGF21 diet, body composition, a version of FGF21 gene linked to 20% of Europeans linked to smaller body. So what it's saying is the FGF21 hormone, when the liver signals it suppresses sugar and alcohol, and it induces you to want to drink water. So they found that certain people that have more of a sweet tooth and don't really have a weird or a deviating hormone, they want to eat more sugar and alcohol, and they hold less body weight too. So the version of the gene distributes body fat to upper body. So you get more of the apple shape. But it's basically just saying that people with different hormones got different body compositions. And what this found is that there's a link between, if you eat a lot of sugar and drink a lot of alcohol, then you might be a skinnier person. So yeah, I guess that kind of makes sense, you know. And there's another study on mice about the FGF21 hormone. University of Texas, it just says when you consume the sugar or alcohol, then the hormone signals to your brain to... So there's more of the FGF21 hormone. When you eat more sugar and alcohol, it's telling your brain to suppress the sugar and alcohol and then to drink water. Basically, that's your way that your body system communicate with each other. So certain parts of your body, like you know, the pancreas, it sends out insulin, and then insulin tells your blood or whatever, or your muscles to take sugar. So that's one example there. Yeah, FGF21 goes from your blood to your hypothalamus. That's basically all it is. You know, it's pretty complex stuff. We're not really used to doing complex stuff on the show, ladies and gentlemen, but it looked kind of interesting, so I figured, hey, why not give her hell and see what happens. And I mean, that's the thing with your body. There's neurological nerve endings and everything, you know, that run through your spine and through every part of your body. And then there's blood that transfers all your nutrients and your hormones. And, you know, then you got all your layers of skin is actually an organ. And then you got, you know, your lungs, your air, your oxygen. Well, the oxygen, your lungs take in whatever airborne nutrients you have, and then it sticks it in your blood. So, you know, like if you breathe in oxygen, you got oxygen in your blood. Or nitrogen, and I guess carbon dioxide, and all the other poisons too. Or smoke, nicotine, or ammonia, whatever they're putting in smoke that makes it addictive. So that obviously gets into your lungs too at some point. So and then when you eat food too, the minute you put a food item in your mouth, saliva starts to build up, and the saliva is actually acting to break down the food. Like say you got a mouthpiece you put in your mouth at night, the saliva will build up because it sees it as a foreign invader. But after a while, it'll figure out, all right, you know, this is just some weird plastic or metal if it's a retainer. So nothing's really happening here, so we're just going to cut back on the saliva. And then, you know, when it gets into your throat, then in your stomach has the really super duper hot acids. Where if you poured stomach acid on this pedestal here, it would, on the podium, the pulpit, if you pour stomach acid on this pulpit, it would burn right through it. There's a certain disease where when people burn holes in their stomach, ulcers, I think it's what it's called. So I mean, yeah, apparently stomach lining gets broken down and then acid leaks through it or whatever. But I mean, that's probably not ideally what happens. But I mean, I'm sure there's something along that line of thought. So, and then once it gets through the stomach, it gets into the big intestines, and that breaks it down, and then there's certain receptors that grab specific types of nutrients. So if you're celiac disease where you can't eat gluten, apparently what happens is the gluten will wipe out those receptors, or it'll muddy them up so that they can't grab healthy stuff. That's the whole idea behind the gluten movement. You know, your bread that you're eating is just glue basically, and causing the receptors not to get any good nutrients. So once it gets through the large intestines, then it goes through ileum valve, and then in the small intestines, which further breaks it down, and then there are receptors in there too. So, I mean, yeah, they supposedly absorb different vitamins and minerals and nutrients and all that good fun stuff. Probably do a bunch of other stuff that we're not aware of as well. and then it gets in your colon, and then you expel it out into your septic mound. So it's basically how the digestive tract works. So, and then once it grabs the nutrients, it sticks it into your blood, and then your blood distributes it to the certain parts of your body where you need it most. And your liver actually stores a lot of vitamins and minerals that apparently you don't need. And apparently the liver can store something like vitamin B12 for 10 years. So your body is capable of some pretty extraordinary stuff too. And us as not me as a scientist, but scientists are probably just scratching the surface with a lot of that. You know, it's going to get exciting. You know, we're going to look at a lot. We're probably going to delve into more details once we need to fill the show with more content. Hopefully I'll actually know what I'm talking about at some point, but you know, we'll see. The future looks bright, that's for sure. But in the meantime, we're coming up to another break, ladies and gentlemen. Good times, balls deep. That's probably going to be more. See, they'll look more into current events, politics, religion. They'll probably do a lot of science stuff. I mean, it's just going to be a next level show. It's going to make St. Cloud great again and communities and families great again. They'll probably cover the whole gamut of all interesting topics that you could conjure up in your own imagination. So I'm extremely ebullient for it and exhilarated, excited, pumped up, all that. You know, all those synonyms or antonyms or thesaurus words for excited. You could call me in on that too for when Good Times Balls Deep hits here. The host of Good Times Balls Deep, they did a bit of a sample run. You know, they watched the United Nations speech and added their own color commentary to it. So, I mean, it's very important, interesting stuff. I mean, it's like an hour and 42 long video of it, and it was just they had very good insight. You know, he sees things from a perspective that a normal layperson, that makes sense to a normal layperson, that they can understand it too, but that it's also, I mean, how could a brilliant mind think, you know, so brilliantly like that? So, you know, it's not going to be didactic or anything. It's just a very, you know, it's like, there's a quote by Einstein once. He said, if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, then you don't understand it yourself. So the host of Good Times Balls Deep, yeah, he could basically explain the most complicated, complex electrical, locomotive, hybrid drive systems to a 5-year-old, and they would understand it. If he was a kindergarten teacher, basically anyone that would graduate kindergarten would probably be able to pass the GRE testing to get into a graduate school. You know, that's just how next level intelligent that he is. And not only that, but just one thing to be a highly intelligent person, but if you're some autistic and you don't really like communicating with other people, then you're not able to teach it to other people. But the host of Good Times Balls Deep, not only is he highly intellectual and scholarly and well-read and very educated, well, I mean, he didn't need to go to an education would have been a waste of time for him. So he doesn't want to limit himself to classroom studies or to curriculum. Because, I mean, he could probably grab about 5 engineering textbooks and within about a month have them all understood, and probably did do half the experiments on them as well. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that, you know, to put words into how Good Times Balls Deep is going to be just doesn't do the show justice. Even though the show will mostly be, you know, word-based and textual and communication, you know, from the host of Good Times Balls Deep, along with other co-hosts too. So yeah, I mean, I'm really excited for it. We might have some other shows in the near future too, so there's always that to consider. I mean, we're always, you know, not really changing up text messages, but just trying to experiment with different things. You know, the 13th episode, yeah, it was probably a giant flop, but when you try new things, you're going to have failure. That's just the reality of life. If you drive to work, there is a chance you could fail on your path to driving to work. If you just lay in bed all day, you're not going to fail at anything. So, yeah, we're going to try new things. We're going to run balls to the wall, hammer down, pedal to the metal, see what happens. You know, there is no real hard science between running talk shows. It's just throw a bunch of junk at, I mean, yeah, the host of Good Times Balls Deep, obviously I can look at him and know that he's going to make St. Cloud great again. And I estimate that probably 90% of the viewers could see that too, and will see that too. So some things are just obvious using common sense. But I mean, I can't really say for sure, like, oh, you know, somebody scientifically advanced like him, it's shown in studies that they succeed better at running talk shows. It's just, yeah, I could probably create some specious test to show that, but we don't really need to do that, so we'll just run promos here for good times, balls deep, and when the show does hit the airwaves, you ladies and gentlemen will be the beneficiaries of it, and you know, it'll make you great again, it'll make you informed again, and just a better person, and bringing back good old fun to America in general. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in 3 minutes on the Parasite of the Show. Rick Text, you're listening to Text Messages. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Text Messages on the Parasite of the Show. Rick Text, we're glad to have you here on this Sunday morning, April 15, 2018. It looks like they pushed NASCAR up to a 12:15 start time, Central Time. So we'll try to plow through the rest of the show, ladies and gentlemen. And most of the reason why I wanted to do the show today was because we have a bit of a blizzard outside, so there's not a whole lot of activities to do, and then. You know, it's great that NASCAR's back on television, making America great again and making antenna television great again. So, you know, I'm super excited to finally be able to watch it after a 3-week layoff. So it'll be great to, you know, see. You know, Bristol's like one of those small little paper clip tracks. You know, it's mile. Yeah, I guess you could say it's a short track for NASCAR. I mean, the car's got, you know, whatever 800 horsepower. So I mean. Yeah, they got the super speedways where they do drafting and all that. They're like 3 miles long, but this one's a pretty short one. And they'll have about 39 cars on the track. So I mean, I'm super excited to, you know, when we shut the camera, the insanely expensive camera off, then I can go watch that. So, yeah, excuse me if I seem to be a little on edge. It's just They had to move up the start time because it was raining, or it rained in the forecast in Bristol, so they got to get the race in early. Because if it rains on a tire track, I mean, they don't have super slick or they don't have super sticky tires to change into, or they don't even have windshield wipers either. So when it rains on a tire track, they're out of luck. They got to, watch the clouds and see if the rain is going to stop or anything like that. And yeah, if it does, they can get these giant jet. To dry the track, they got these big pickups, and then on the back of them, they got these jet dryers, they call them. So they just blow hot air on the track, dries it up pretty quick. But if it continues to rain, then it doesn't really do much good. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, the Bristol race is pretty much going on right now. But to complete the show here, I really shouldn't have shut down laptops, and I'm not going to know the time. So yeah, it's just going to be a complete free-for-all from here, ladies and gentlemen. I got a couple more studies here. Let's see. One of the medicaldaily.com. It's a great website for just health-related items. All the studies I got today are from medicaldaily.com. I looked. I did a little bit of show prep last night because normally we have a central theme that I can just follow, but for today's show I decided that we're gonna see how if it would be possible to just put together some news articles and then create a show out of just a few of them. And it's mostly health-related junk, too. It's not, politics or religion or current events, too. And religion, I suppose, doesn't really change much with time. But people's perception of it and practices and follows of it definitely changes with time. And then, you got different and new religious denominations and different prophecies and all that, too. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, get back to our research here. So we have medicaldaily.com. 12 foods that grown conventionally have an abundance of pesticides on them. Now, yeah, it might say the levels found on these certain foods are below the EPA safe levels, but it's like, in all honesty, in my humble opinion, there is no safety level to pesticides. I mean, you just try to avoid them if you can, and that's basically common sense. So one of the foods, strawberries. So I suppose strawberries are super easy to grow. You can grow them anywhere. There's different kinds of strawberries too. Like, for example, in Minnesota, everbearing strawberries. They create berries pretty early in the season, early summer. And they also create them in the fall too. But what you need to do is you need to put plant food on them. The potash, phosphorus, nitrogen, and iron, manganese, all that crap. Just buy one of those bags that say for fruits or whatever. Or use your own compost if you got chicken feces or any other food scraps. Just make your own compost and mix that in too. What you're going to find is that every couple of years the plants have a certain life cycle. So every plant has runners. They grow runners. That's their way of reproducing. It's like humans, I'm not going to be alive forever. So, but I need to find a female to impregnate and then perpetuate the existence. So that's the same thing that strawberries do. They create runners, and then those runners plant their seeds in the soil and then grow. Now, some of the strawberry plants are going to die off after a few years, so you kind of have to. Let's say you got a big patch. So say you have 2/3 of the patch that has good fresh strawberries, and then 1/3 of the patch dies off, and then you can transplant some of the newer strawberries into that old patch that died off. Or if the runners are, abundant enough, the runners can eventually go over there and seed them themselves. But for the most part, you will have to. What's the word? You will have to transplant occasionally, and plants will die off. So if you have a big patch, it's not the entire patch is going to grow, flourish, and nourish every single year. There's going to be die-offs. They're going to have runners and all that too. And if you don't want runners, if you just want the plant to create berries, then you can go in there with little scissors and clip the runners so that it creates big, giant, juicy berries. You can also do that too. And some people will find the biggest, baddest plant and then, transplant the runners from that too. They might. You can try to clip a runner and place it somewhere else, but for the most part, I usually wait till it seeds and roots, and then I'll transplant it, and then it seems to work out pretty good. But you don't really need, if you don't want to, you don't have to transplant, you don't have to clip run it, you don't have to do any of that junk. You can just, dumping plant food and composting is pretty important though, and that's something that you generally have to do. And watering it helps a lot too, especially if it's not raining that often. You can set up some type of irrigation and naturally water too, like if you just got a hose with little holes in it that just runs through the center of the strawberry patch. I mean, that it may not get water out to the edges of the patch, but it'll definitely liquefy the center of it, and hope maybe that, and maybe it'll work. Yeah, depending on the system you got set up. So yeah, growing your own strawberries, I probably by spending all this time talking about it, it makes it sound super complicated, but it's a very easy thing to do. You can go on Craigslist, or just, you can buy plants at Menards or anything too. They're very easy to find. Or you can go to that guy's greenhouse in Malacca. He's probably got them too. Okay, another food that grown conventionally has lots of pesticides is spinach. One of the reasons why spinach has a lot of pesticides is because, same with lettuce too, is because the surface area of the leaf, and different types of plants just require different types of pesticides to get rid of the bad things and the bugs that want to take them over too. So spinach is a big, it has a lot of pesticides according to the 12 foods that if you can grow them conventionally, then choose to do that, or just be more cognizant of cleaning them, and try to get organic sources too. I mean, if you're gonna get spinach, arugula, chode or chard or whatever it's called, or kale, just try to get organic sources. That's pretty straightforward stuff. And spinach, you can absolutely grow that in Minnesota too, just like kale, arugula, and chard. Yeah, I mean, it is good to get a variety too. Just try to grow all the leafy plants you can, and you're willing to. And your soil might be better at growing spinach than it is at growing chard. So based on whatever you find that you enjoy and that your family enjoys, probably go with that and run with that, and then just do your little starter plants indoors, transplant them outside after a transitory phase, and then you should be good to go. So I mean, yeah, I get organic spinach is going to be a lot more expensive, but the thing with spinach and produce in general is it does have a very short shelf life. So when deals happen, the thing with spinach is you can freeze it. Now, yeah, it might make some of the nutrients not as good, but if you, like for example, yesterday when I went to Cub Foods, they had, normally a 5-ounce container of spinach is $4. But today, it's going to expire soon, so it was buy one get one free. So then it's only $2. So it's half off. It's pretty fair price. I don't have any spinach. I don't have any frozen spinach from years before. So I figured, all right, yeah, I'll buy that. Seems like a pretty fair price. So, you eat the first container. By the time you get the second container, it's starting to get, the weird dark green moisture all over it. So so I usually freeze one container and then eat one of the containers fresh. And you can buy a lot of spinach and then freeze a lot of it too. Like if there's a mega deal, then just buy a whole crap load and then freeze a whole bunch of it. And you don't have to eat the frozen stuff right away. I mean, by the time you even get to most of your frozen stuff, there might be another awesome deal on fresh spinach. So then you could buy that. I'm talking organic spinach here, not the conventional stuff. I mean, yeah, the conventional stuff is way cheaper, but you got to be wary of what you're eating. I mean, it's just, yeah, maybe you can eat it every once in a while just to introduce those micronutrients into your body, and then if you keep the pesticides to a low, basically, you don't go crazy. You don't want to go crazy just eating raw spinach with all the pesticides on it. I mean, if you see that spinach, kale, chode, or arugula is healthy, then just don't wolf it down as an entire meal if it's got all these pesticides on it. So plus it doesn't really have enough of the calories to burn as energy to create all the body's defense systems for those pesticides to eradicate them from your body. Okay, another food is nectarines. Now nectarines, in Minnesota here, you can grow peach trees in like the more southern part, but for the most part, you need to know what you're doing if you're going to grow peach trees. And a nectarine is basically similar to a peach, so yeah, it's kind of one in one there too. So, like I said before, different foods require different pesticides to get rid of whatever animals want to attack them too. Another, nectarines and apples, they're part of the 12 food. So apples are very simple to grow in Minnesota. I mean, you can prune the tree. You can just plant the tree and not do a damn thing with it. But usually you'll want to plant the tree, prune it every once in a while, and then clip off the little apples. And the other thing that I've found is I sort of stumbled upon this the other year, but if you have some type of not really a pond, but just some kind of water sources around your apple trees, then frogs are going to be more prone to being on your apple trees, and then frogs will get rid of a lot of the bugs and insects that try to attack your apples. So frogs would act as like, a natural pesticide. So when I was messing around with my apple tree last year, I noticed there's some green frogs on it. I was just like, hey, this is great. This is outstanding. I mean, these guys can act as a natural pesticide. And, a frog is amphibian. So, it can live in land and water. So you don't necessarily need to have a pond right next to your apple trees. And in fact, if you did, it probably might not be good, because then it might be a low level, it might be high water table. So then the roots aren't very deep. So there's also that to consider too. It's just, if you can find natural pesticides, try to utilize them. And if you want to spray the apple tree down, if you think that'll help, I mean, yeah, go ahead. But if your tree is really, pushing it to the limit and creating just a crap ton of apples, you're not going to mind if half the apples are, chewed on by worms or insects or wasps or things like that too. So, and then the other thing too, with backyard chickens, some of them will attack frogs. I mean, one of my chickens attacked a frog once, and he didn't even eat it, and then it just doesn't attack him after that. But so you need to be careful of that too. Chickens, they're not perfect. The humans aren't even perfect, so yeah, obviously a hen isn't going to be perfect either. All right, one of the other food that has pesticides is grapes, and peach. It has peaches on here, but peaches and nectarines are basically the same thing. So there's grapes. When you grow grapes yourself, one of the things that I've noticed is to grow grapes in Minnesota, you can grow, you'll need like sort of a fence for it to grow on. Or actually, it's the post with the two wires that go on it, and then the trees will wrap their branches around those wires, and then it'll create the little, the pockets of grapes, and then you can pull them off. But a lot of the grapes that I've eaten that have been locally grown, they have the seeds inside of them. So I mean, they're a little different. See, when you buy grapes from the grocery store, they don't have the seeds in them, so you can just wolf down a whole bunch of them in one sitting and not even think about it. And I mean, in my opinion, I just don't think that's any better than eating candy. But if you eat the grapes with the seeds in them, you got to be a little bit more careful. You can probably eat the seeds. I'm sure they got protein and fat and all that good healthy stuff. Seeds are, for the most part, pretty healthy. So when you eat the grapes with the seeds in them, you have to eat them a lot slower. And of course, anything homegrown, if the soil is nice and rich and everything too, it always seems to taste a little bit better. Tastes a lot different too. A lot thicker taste, thicker texture. Yeah, I mean, when you buy grapes in the grocery store, they're sold by the pound. So they want to have them heavy to make the most profit off of them. And grapes have a lot of surface area. That's the other thing too. When you're buying food, when you're buying fruit where the fruit is exposed to the air and to the pesticide spray and everything too, you're going to have a lot of the spray residue on it. They can't clean it all off. The grapes, they're just small little size of a marble. So that there's same with apples and peaches and nectarines. I mean, and cherries. They all have lots of surface area for that spray. Cherries is another thing that's on here too. It seems that most cherries that grow in Minnesota aren't the sweet ones. So, I mean, maybe the growing, has gotten more technologically advanced, so you can get the sweeter cherries here. But what I've noticed is that you get more of the tartar cherries, the ones that you make jam out of. And if you do make jam, try to avoid sugars and just that sweetener and all that gross stuff. I mean, if you give somebody jam with a bunch of sugar in it, it's just, you're probably doing them more harm than good. I mean, yeah, they'll accept it and think it's cool and everything too, but I mean, it's just, sugar is a very bad thing. It should, I don't really see why. I mean, yeah, you take sugar orally, but if you do cocaine, for example, you sniff it through your nose. I mean, it's just, it seems to have the same deleterious effects as cocaine that sugar does. Plus, it's marketed to children too. And someday we're going to come after the corporations that market these drugs to children. Not today, but someday we will be coming after them, ladies and gentlemen. Another item on here are pears. And pears are very similar to apples. A pear tree takes a lot longer to finally produce fruit. I mean, if you buy a new pear tree from Menards, it's going to take about 8 years till it finally starts making good, big, plump pear fruits basically. But yeah, they're really delicious. See, all these fruit trees, you can have apple trees, plum trees, pears, peaches, cherries, and then you got your bushes too: blackberry, blueberries, strawberries, and honeyberries, gooseberries, raspberries. You can have all that junk in your yard, and but you can freeze it all too. Like I got a whole bunch of apples frozen, and then make applesauce, and then eat the carbohydrates one day a week if there's not other good delicious fruit to eat. So it's cool just to have a variety. Plus cross pollination, I guess, is good for it too. And then beehives are a nice thing to have too. We're gonna get into beehives some in a future broadcast, ladies and gentlemen. Just even if you don't like honey or don't eat honey, it's still kind of a nice thing to have, just because it. Just because it makes plants great again and pollinates them. And there was a study I read a few weeks ago about robot bees, and I mean, it's just crazy what people think they should be doing. It's just treat the bees with respect. And yeah, robot bees, it's a cool concept. It's simple, a drone-powered, self-automated bee, autonomous bee, takes pollen from one plant and brings it to another. I mean, how hard could it be, but you just don't understand how they might supplant the other bees too in a very unexpected manner. So they might go to a hive and completely corrupt the hive and wreck everything and just cause a bunch of mayhem. So yeah, I don't know, robo bees, I'm not yeah, it's an engineering feat and all that, but I mean, it's when man makes things for man to use, engineering is cool and awesome and fun and everything, and STEM is good, and girls in science and all that stuff too. But when man tries to replace God functions, it's something that I'm not going to advocate for. I mean, yeah, if you want to spend the time to do it, go ahead. Especially, I mean, it's better than eating Doritos and watching NASCAR all day, for example. Which is why I only try to limit myself to once a week watching NASCAR. I mean, that's all that it's on, so that makes it easy then. It's nice when things just go along and work together like that. It's like when you work together with the environment and with the Almighty and with your family and friends too. Everything just works a lot better. One of the other foods with a lot of pesticides, tomatoes. Again, you can. The thing with tomatoes, when you grow tomatoes, you want to put those cages around them so that, because the tomato plants are genetically engineered nowadays so that they get very big, and they can actually tip the plant over and break leaves off or break stems and branches off. So that's why they have the cages on, so that the branches kind of rest on the cage, and then when it creates the big juicy plum plant or big juicy plum fruit, then you can eat it that way. Now, celery is another thing. Celery, it probably doesn't really make much sense to buy celery from the store. It's like 80% water, and I guess according to this, the other 20% is probably pesticides. So yeah, you can grow it yourself, just do that. Sweet bell peppers, that's kind of the same thing as tomatoes. You probably don't need a cage to grow bell peppers. Maybe it'll work, but yeah, it's up to you, really. I mean, if you want to have metal contraptions all over your garden, that's totally up to you. Potatoes is another thing of the 12 foods that have a lot of pesticides that surprised me a little bit, just because it's a legume. It's grown underground. So you'd think, well, most of the foods with the pesticides are the ones that are directly exposed to the spray, but yeah, potatoes made the list, so I suppose that can go for sweet potatoes and all that too. So yeah, when you do grow your own potatoes, sweet potatoes, for example, at the end of the fall or whatever, you dig them up, and then you get some big juicy plum plants, and you get a lot of them too if the soil is good and all that. Obviously that's kind of a no-brainer there. You can freeze them, just hack them up, put them in the freezer and freeze them, and then eat them. I still got a big giant bag of sweet potatoes from last fall. Just steam them up. Probably steam up a little bit today in a couple minutes here. So, along with some acorn squash and probably some mushrooms, and then a couple of the outdoor hen eggs. So literally, the next 400 calories I'm going to eat is all directly out of, with the exception of the mushrooms, is all directly out of the backyard here. So it's good to have healthy sources. I mean, that doesn't mean that literally everything you eat needs to be out of your backyard or out of your hen's ass or whatever. It's nice to have locally grown food, and as local as you can get it. is what I'm trying to say here. So then you don't have to really worry about pesticides. Alright, so as a compendium, 12 foods that have lots of pesticides. Strawberries, spinach, nectarines, apples, grapes, peaches, cherries, pears, tomatoes, celery, potatoes, sweet bell peppers. Those are the 12. They do a bunch of studies on them and find a bunch of pesticide residue on them. So those are good ones to avoid. And like I said, I have no idea what the time is. So we're just going to run. I'm not going to explain these ones, but 15 foods with the least pesticide residue. Avocados. You can try to grow them indoors with those little goofy indoor plants, but yeah, I've never done it, but I'm sure there's good informational videos out there on YouTube. Sweet corn, you can absolutely grow sweet corn in your own garden. Pineapples, you're not going to be able to... You can grow indoor pineapple plants, but as far as getting the actual pineapple fruit, you're probably going to be out of luck there. Cabbages, another great thing to grow outside. Onions, you can grow outside. Sweet peas. Peas are very labor intensive. That's not in any way trying to inhibit you from growing them or discourage you from growing them. But just make sure you got your little fences set up so that the peas can sort of crawl on the fence. And then you got the pods that you can just pull off nice conveniently. Papaya fruits, they mostly grow in tropical environments, just like mangoes, which is also on this list. Pineapples, papayas, mangoes, those are mostly, same with kiwis. You might be able to grow them indoors, but yeah, getting them the fruit and everything, no guarantees on that one there. Asparagus, onions. Asparagus are very expensive when you buy them from like Aldi or Cub Foods. So that's probably a good thing to grow yourself if you enjoy them. I mean, they're really delicious, so yeah, why not? Eggplants, honeydew melons, cantaloupes, those are nice, delicious fruits. See, the thing with honeydew melons and cantaloupes, that's one of those fruits where when you buy it from the grocery store, it just doesn't really seem that good. But when you grow it yourself, it just has that little extra flair that makes it great again. So, that's a good fruit to grow yourself. The thing with cantaloupes, though, is they got these big, long, sweeping plants that want to take up a whole bunch of area. So what you could almost do is just dig a little circle in your yard and then just plant the cantaloupe there and then you can even let it grow over the grass part of it. And then maybe it'll kill some of the grass too, so then you can later till that up and make it into a real garden next year, whatever the case may be. So honeydew melons, cantaloupes, they're pretty similar. And then cauliflower and broccoli make the list of the 15 least pesticide residues found on fruits and vegetables inside the grocery store. So yeah, I suppose that's good news. So you don't really need to worry too much about pesticides on the cauliflower and broccoli that you're buying at Big Joe Rosso's Discount Foods. So as a quick summary, the 15 least pesticide foods: avocado, sweet corn, pineapples, cabbage, onions, sweet peas, potatoes, cherries, mangoes, eggplants, honeydew melons, kiwis, cantaloupes, cauliflower, broccoli. So those are all foods that are going to make you great again, make your family great again, make America great again. And yeah, try to get locally sourced, organic, pasture-raised fruit and vegetables if you can. Yeah, it gets expensive and all that, but you kind of get what you pay for. If you want to fill up on calories, fruit has a lot of carbohydrates in it. Vegetables got a lot more fiber in it and not so much calories. So just think of fruits and vegetables as micronutrients, and then think of your calories as fats and proteins that you can get out of tree nuts or meat or anything like that. And that being said, ladies and gentlemen, that puts a wrap on this show. Went pretty good. We didn't have a central topic. We just covered a couple news topics and ran with that. And yeah, hopefully it'll be able to make America great again. But I'm optimistic about this show. It sort of proves to me that if worse comes to worse and we need to start fighting battles, then we're ready to go 5, 7, 9 days a week to run the show. And of course, Good Times Balls Deep will be coming in the near future too. So possibly once Good Times Balls Deep come, we might pull back the reins a little bit on text messages, but no guarantees there. Maybe we'll just hit the pedal even harder and run faster and everything too. So that being said, ladies and gentlemen, glad to have you here again. I'm going to be watching the NASCAR race in a little bit here. Princeton Speedway dirt track racing, that should be opening in a couple weeks here. So yeah, we might have some recaps of those events too and activities. And then if you yourself, you can always go out to a racetrack. It's nice, weird, unique entertainment and that most people that experience it for the first time definitely don't even realize that something like that is going on in their backyard. So it's just the advertising and the promotions for it aren't very good. Nobody gets in the dirt track racing to make money. Basically, it's just good, clean American fun and all that. Red, white, and blue, and chrome and white and black and red and blue and green and yellow and orange. So, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Text Messages. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Text. Glad to have you here 3 nights a week. The last couple of weeks, with the 13th episode, and then we're doing today's show, so I guess 4 nights a week. And I don't know, maybe we will go to 4 days a week. I'm not really sure. We still have to get more sponsors, and that might take up more time too. But then maybe it'll just energize me more to make America great again. So you never know. Life is weird. It does weird things. So sometimes the more busy you get, the more motivated and not really angry, but you get more focused and concentrated on what's important, and then you really put the hammer down. So thanks for listening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm the parasite of the show, Rick Tex. Hopefully you'll join us again on Tuesday evening. Thank you very much.